Hi and welcome to Counting Coral Chats. I'm Jolien Collier and I will be your host for today's interview. Here at Counting Coral, we like to reach out and interview people from all walks of life. Some folks are about ocean conservation and others can be marine biologists, scientists, and just your average person doing extraordinary things. Hi and welcome to Counting Coral Chats with Ken Kiefer. Ken is an award-winning underwater photographer who creates attention-grabbing images of the underwater realm. He has a love of the water and travel, and his work captures life in action. Ken is best known for his work with large animals and their peaceful interaction with humans. Hey Ken, welcome to Counting Coral Chats. Appreciate you taking the time out to chat with us today. How's things going?
Great, thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries. And where are you located?
Just south of Houston. Call it Houston. It's a small town, a suburb of Houston.
Oh, okay, cool. So you're in the mainland. For some reason, I thought you were in Hawaii, and I don't know where I got
that would be great
imagination from, but maybe it was me playing out my my best case scenarios, like wanting to be in Hawaii.
That would be great.
Yeah, so let's get going on the interview. I've seen you've sent me the images and we'll be pulling those up for people so they can see them. And I have to say, mate, they're really quite amazing. Some of the model shots you've got and obviously the large animal shots are just incredible. Could you tell us, what inspired you to start being an underwater photographer? I ask this question a lot because I really do like the stories that people have. How did you get into this?
I got into it because I got into diving. Once I went through, I became a PADI instructor. I'm a horrible instructor, by the way. I just don't have the patience or the knack for it. I'm just not good at it. But every minute that I was underwater, I was wishing other people could see some of the things that most people just don't experience. And I wanted to find a way to bring that to them and get them interested and get them under rather than me just telling them. So I did some video, this was back in film days. So I had a small MX-10, I can't remember who makes it, and a little yellow camera. And then I moved up to a Nikon 5, working with film, just practice. And at the time, practicing was such a slow process. If you've ever shot film, you shoot it, you've only got 36 shots. You can experiment, and then it takes you a couple days to see how your experiment works. And around 2004, digital got good enough where people were making housings for the digital, and you could have instant feedback and you could improve like really quickly. And I was able to show everyone, family, friends, show them what's happening underwater. And people at first they don't believe, oh, did you fake this? No, this is what's happening. You need to come see it. It's really great.
Oh, that's an amazing story. And that's kind of why we're doing our Counting Coral Chat series and interviewing people like yourself, is to inspire people and show them that the underwater realm is truly spectacular and very unique. And if you haven't seen it before or you're not engaging in it, then you don't know about it. So
right, you can make them care about it by showing them something they can fall in love with.
Yeah, and I particularly like your story because of the bio. You're saying that in that peaceful interaction with humans. That's just a nice way to put it, because yes, there is violent interactions with humans, but predators are they're ambush predator prey type mentality. But if you're in the crystal clear water and you're in there with a great white shark or a crocodile, they're not going to come race up to you and bite you straight away. You know what I mean? It's like a peaceful interaction. So it's something I really admired about the photography that you sent me, is like, oh wow, you're about 3 feet away from a crocodile. That's pretty nuts in my opinion, but you're demonstrating that it's pretty cool and it's not as bad as what people would imagine. So
right.
Were you a land-based photographer prior to this? Because it's a little bit of a transition to go from land to water, especially back in your day and my day when it was film, and there's a whole different concept to what people are doing these days.
I kind of used it backwards. I wanted to show people the underwater, so I practiced on land, and I did some sports, some weddings and stuff, but it's just not for me. It doesn't pique my creativity. It's not that fun for me. So I don't really do land, and my wife a little bit irritated about that. She'll want land pictures, and I'm like, no, go underwater. I'm okay with anything, but on land, I just don't enjoy it.
It's not quite as exciting, is it? But you tend to, you see so much different stuff under the water that it's always a surprise every time you dive almost, even though
Right.
you may have seen a certain type of coral or fish or shark so many times, but there's that experience when you're in the water where it's just like, oh yeah, and there's a thrill to it, it's an excitement and adventure. So I can appreciate
Absolutely.
that. Yeah. So I'm gonna bring up a picture of you with a crocodile. You're taking a picture of this crocodile, and it's a pretty awesome shot. Do you have a shot list when you're actually going into the water with these larger predator animals or sharks?
I kind of have a concept, kind of a dream shots that I want. For instance, if I'm with a shark or with a croc, I think to myself, I would like to see one go over, get maybe a silhouette shot or just straight in the face. And I'll have dream shots, but then as soon as you know, Mother Nature has a big hand in this. And so if it's cloudy day, if it's stormy, if it's the bad visibility, you have to adapt. And that's probably one of the biggest things that anyone getting into photography should learn to adapt. Know your equipment and learn to adapt, because things are going to change. Like you may have vision of sun rays coming over the shark like this. Sharks don't come from that direction, cloudy day, stuff like that. So you've got to come up with you've got to have a broad spectrum of what you want. You can't just wait for the one shot or you'll waste your entire dive.
Yeah, I think that goes back to what we were just saying, that adventurous part about it. It's an element that you don't quite have any control over. Like land-based, you might have a windy day and a bit of dust, or a sunset, but there's always those sweet spots to land-based photography,
Right.
which you have in the ocean too, but they're a lot harder to grasp and catch. So when you've also got some model pictures, which are stunning, with crocodiles and sharks and stuff like that. Do you have like a safety setup when you shoot with predators? I mean, how do you protect your crew? And I'm assuming you have quite a crew together to orchestrate these shots, and they're stunning.
Absolutely. With any large animal, you've always got to be safety's first. We're not gonna create an image at the expense of safety. We don't do any of the animals that we do as a first time with a model. We have extensive. My wife and I have been diving with sharks for about 20 years. So, and no one knows everything they're going to do, but their tendencies. When it's time to either get away from them, leave them alone. They've got hints, they've got body language, and you've got to know that. You've got to know what to do in different situations. So, for a safety team with sharks, you're going to need somebody. You need bait or the smell of bait to bring sharks around close enough for the images. So you've got to have somebody manage the bait, somebody to constantly, especially if the model is doing where she's breathing off a regulator, then getting rid of the regulator, modeling, and then you've got to have a specific person, safety diver, for the model that knows all their hand signals, have been over it and done it extensively. And then I don't really generally need a safety diver. If I do, then we'll have an extra for them. But for the crocodiles, we've got a safety diver that is always, their primary focus is always on the model. Generally, my camera is a good barrier. With the crocodiles, anything you need, if they have a stick, the safety divers have a stick, and it's not to stab them, it's not to sword fight them, it's not to poke them. You put it between them, and if the crocodile runs into it as a barrier, they find out that's not anything good to eat, and they back up. And so there's somebody always with a stick immediately off where I show them where my lens reaches, and there's a stick immediately to the one side or above so that they can intervene between the model and the croc. My camera usually is a good barrier. I mean, it obviously could fail, but anything in life worth doing to me has some element of risk. But we try to mitigate that. We've got safety on top on the boat, and they're watching for other crocodiles coming, and also just keeping an overall view to ensure everyone's safety.
Yeah, I mean, it's amazing. You have to take these steps, obviously, to protect everybody. You're always got in that position of the unknown, but like you say, that the camera housing definitely does feel like you've got a protection there. Because I used to shoot in Fiji a lot with cameras, and we were around sharks. It was always feel like, oh, you're going to be biting this before you bite me. You know what I mean? It's like, which is always pretty funny. But that kind of lends to a different story to what we were just talking about when you're in a water trying to take a shot. These are more orchestrated because of all those safety protocols that you have to put in place, correct? So those
Right.
shot lists are then a little bit more honed in or narrowed because you do have that element of multiple different people. So I would imagine you have to set those shots up a little bit differently than free swimming in the ocean with a shark.
Absolutely. We get in like with the croc picture in a model. We'll get in. First, we've got to find a croc that some of them are super crazy and do nothing but bite. Well, obviously, no one's going to take their mask off and be around them. If we find one that's a little more mellow, we see kind of the area that they are and which direction they're facing. See how the sun's coming in the current, and we try to work with it. Sometimes I may want a crystal clear shot with the sun behind me. The croc doesn't want to be in that direction, so we work with sun rays coming over the model. But in general, you're right. We have to work with what the animal's willing to do and the conditions surrounding that moment.
Yes, I commend you for that. I personally wouldn't want to do that, and obviously you have years and years and years of experience. So I wouldn't recommend this to anybody at home. Right? But speaking of model shots, so I've just pulled up a model shot of a pregnant lady and a gentleman with a gold veil. That is stunning. I mean, beautiful stuff. Now, is that partially edited? I mean, obviously there's some edit work in there, but I mean, you've got to get that shot just perfect. It's incredible. Talk me through that. I mean,
there is almost no post-production to that shot. We spend hours anytime we do a pool shoot. And the reason pool shoots came about for us was we don't live in Hawaii, unfortunately. So we don't have, if I had the ocean and sharks every day, I would probably do nothing but that. But we have a swimming pool in the backyard, and I work at which has a large swimming pool. So we're able to experiment and just keep in practice. And I love the creativity of it. But this lady, I had shot her. She was a wrestler, a pro wrestler. And then she was on The Amazing Race and stuff. And she wanted to do some model shots. So I had done model shots with her. Her name's Brooke Adams. And she actually, very soon after we had done a couple shoot with her and her husband, she called. She said, "Hey, I want to do a maternity shoot." So we just kind of experimented, and we had a black backdrop. We just had a giant 20-foot by 20-foot black backdrop that we sink, and we put weights to get it all, formed to the back of the pool. And then we just come up with ideas of poses and stuff. And she had done some stuff on land. And we tried to translate that. But the thing about when you're underwater, you don't want an image that's exactly like the one on land. You want to use stuff because your hair can flow in ways that it can't on land without crazy wind. You have reflections that you can't do on land. You just have to get the right angle and the lighting. And on that day, it was lightly cloudy, but we had a good overhead light. And then I've got my two big, powerful iFlight strobes, and I was able to place them so that we eliminate shadows and just make them really pop. And the black, they're far enough away from the black background. The black background is just a null void, and it brings them forward. And they tried lots of poses, and that one just really worked for me.
Yeah, outstanding. And to be fair, I thought that was in the ocean. I wouldn't have not imagined that was in a pool because
it was in a 4-foot pool.
So that was daytime. It wasn't so you had some strobes, but it was also daytime with a little bit of cloud. So is that where that light's coming in from the surface? But you've also used the strobes underneath to capture all those nice shadows and elements of the model.
Exactly.
Wow.
I put the strobes low and out wide and with a slight tilt up, just to try to eliminate all shadows. And it was able to compete with that because it wasn't full blazing sunlight. Yeah. It worked out really well.
And then you've got another one which I really, really love. Is the SpiderMan shot. Oh my goodness! How did you come up with that idea? I mean, is that a friend of yours to go, "Hey, I want to dress up as Spidey and jump in your pool and shoot," or was that you guys coming up with that?
A friend of mine that I play volleyball with, and one time he had an outfit. He makes incredible cosplay. He has a Boba Fett that shoots flames out of the arms, like about 6 feet. I mean, he's an engineer, and he's just meticulous and amazing at recreating things. And I saw the Iron Man, and I said, "Hey, you want to stick that in the pool?" Because at the time, anything, and even now, anything we can find to experiment and do something different in the water, we'll try it. Some stuff works, some stuff doesn't work. But he said, I can't put Iron Man because it had a whole bunch of electronics. Everything lit up, the face, the palm. He said, but I got SpiderMan. I'm like, yeah, let's give it a shot. And that image has a lot of stories. For one, he waterboarded himself for about 5 hours because the Lycra, when you go underwater, the mask didn't come up in the front. It had to peel from the back. Oh. And the first time he went under, he came up, he breathed out, and the mask swelled. And then when he breathed in, it sucked in. So he was having to force himself to suck air through the mask. I was like, man, we can't do this. He's like, no, I like it. And he's just amazing at doing the poses. That was also in a 4-foot pool. But the black background, and he was doing all the Spidey stuff. And that image has been all over the world. It was in scuba magazines in Russia, China. I don't even know. Like, it's crazy that in scuba magazines, they're putting a picture of Spider-Man. It makes me laugh.
Well, I mean, it's just a credit to your ability to be able to come up with creative shots, and anything to do with water is going to get in some sort of dive magazine somehow. Even though you're not in the ocean, you're still essentially diving. Which
it was. His outfit was so good. He handmade that. He sent to a place and had the material printed, and then he took sewing class to learn how to sew it. And he's 6'8". He's 6'8", and we were in a 4-foot pool, but that worked with Spider-Man because of all the climbing and stuff like that. The poses just worked out flawlessly.
Yeah, I mean, that particular pose is just brilliant. He did a great job. You guys both did a great job. So I'm pulling up so funnily enough, you got the image behind you that I'm pulling up that I'm looking at. There's a great white shark.
Yeah.
How and why would you ever want to get in front of that beast? And what is your favorite shark to shoot? I know great whites can be very relaxed in the water with divers, and they pose not too much of a threat unless they're in predatory mode. But that's a terrifying picture, in my opinion. What's your thoughts on your favorite sharks to shoot, and this one in particular? How did that come about?
Well, great white. I've had when I was 7, I think, Jaws came out, and I saw Jaws, and it terrified me where I wouldn't get in the swimming pool. I was scared in the bathtub. And after a while, I got tired of being scared, and I wanted to know why, what it was and they did a great job with that movie, honestly. It was a scary movie. But so I would go to the library, and I know kids nowadays have no concept of what a library is. They just have Google. But I would go to the library every week and bring home stacks of books. I was enthralled, and I wanted to know everything about sharks. I watched every show, I read every book, and I grew to love sharks versus be terrified of them once I learned what they were versus what the media portrays. And I told myself when I was young, before I ever had been scuba diving, before I wanted to see a great white underwater, and if I ever got a good picture, I was going to blow it into a giant picture. And so I had to do this in my office. But the great whites are not my favorite to photograph and swim with. They're probably third. First is hammerheads, because they have unlimited angles. With the combination of their head, their long muscular body, and their huge fins. They have the biggest fins of any of the sharks. They present a lot of amazing angles. You can get them a lot of different ways. For instance, tiger sharks, they kind of look like a tadpole from a lot of angles. They're just because they're so bulky, and then they trim down in short fins. And hammers are just in the way they move. Hammerheads have always been my favorite to swim with. And probably second.
I've just pulled up an image of a mouth of a hammerhead. So yeah, they might be your favorite, but that looks also equally as terrifying as a great white behind you. Did he come up and try and bite your camera? Is that what happened?
Well, and it's kind of, to get stuff like that, it's on purpose. The baiter will just kind of lead the bait, and I wanted an open mouth shot. And I don't do a whole lot of those just because people are already scared of sharks, and so I don't focus primarily on open mouth and stuff, but they're fun sometimes. And so I had the guy with the shark feeder just lead the bait, and so the hammerhead can't see directly in front of it. It's got a little arc, about a 2-foot arc, where it can't see, because it can see 360, but it can't see directly in front of its head. So when it comes, he leads the bait, and so it just kind of chews on my camera a little bit, trying to figure out where the bait went.
Yeah. No, I can appreciate that. So I interrupted you. You said 3. You did.
My second favorite, if you've ever been around oceanic whitetips,
Yeah.
I love their curiosity and their willingness to hang out. They really want to, like, I mean, I'm sure it's because they're ocean open sharks. Anything they see, they need to investigate and see if it's food, see if it's not food. But I like the interaction with oceanics.
No, I agree with you. Some of my most favorite dives are with white tips and black tips. They're just so curious creatures, and they literally come up and bump you in the mask. It's like, did you not see me? I'm right in front of you. But it's quite comical, and they're such elegant creatures too, and extremely
Absolutely.
fast when they want to be, and it's pretty incredible. So I'm pulling up another picture of an ROV. Could you talk about that? Was this like a dive tank you guys were in, and you were
That
experimenting
was,
with some stuff?
have you ever heard of NASA's Neutral Buoyancy Lab? It's
Yeah.
where they train all the astronauts. They've got a mock-up of the International Space Station. It's 40 foot deep, like 7 million gallons, something like swimming pool.
Yeah.
And I've been trying. It's very close to where I live, and I've been trying to get in there for 20 years, 18 years, and they offered me a job. I didn't want to work there full time. I just wanted to get in and play around. But the government regulations, you really can't. It's hard to get in there, and a company that makes that robot. It's a transformer. It starts out as a submarine, and then it pops open. The head comes out. The arms come out, and It's a autonomous robot. It was designed by a whole bunch of ex-NASA engineers that had made like Mars robots and stuff like that, and they branched off on their own, and they created this. Primarily, their initial thought was to have it go down and work on pipelines, underwater drilling rigs and stuff like that, and do repairs without having a human have to decompress and do so much. And they hired me to shoot it, and they said, after I had to sign a whole bunch of releases, but they said, we're going to go somewhere awesome. And I was thinking Hawaii, Fiji, something like that. And then they said, we're going to the NBL, which was just as good to me because I wanted to be in there so bad. And that robot's amazing. And getting in the NBL, getting to watch, I took pictures of astronauts, but I can't ever post them due to the government regulations. But it was an incredible experience.
Sounds like an amazing treat, and to have that on your bucket list for such a long time, and then have that nice surprise of.
Yeah, I would have shot it for free.
Did you get to go inside it?
Inside the robot?
Yeah.
There's nothing in the robot. It's all. I got to go inside.
Oh, so it's autonomous, but you can't go in it either. So it's just completely autonomous.
It's completely. It can run off of cables, but it can also run off of. I don't even know their secret. The signals, how they transmit signals to it and stuff. But they can give it a task. It can go down. It's got a grid laser that it will put out, and it can map everything that it's seeing. Damn. And then they can tell it, remove that screw or tighten this, or I don't even know what all it can do, but it's incredible. The Navy, U.S. Navy, gave them a $20-something million contract to push it further. So who knows what they're doing with it?
No, I mean, if anyone's going to come up with a machine like that, it's it's going to be NASA, right?
Right.
I mean, we're going off to Mars and all different places nowadays, so it makes perfect sense that they would come up with something as cool as that. So it seems like you got a really varied experience, and I've just pulled up another shot of what seems like a cave to me. Are you into cave diving?
I'm scared of cave diving. I've done what's called cavern diving, which means you're a certain distance from the light. To me, it's all the same. Once it goes pitch black and you're squished into a tight area, it's just not, I'm not comfortable. I can make myself do it. It's not a phobia, but it's just not in my comfort zone. But we did it for some friends of ours that they own a shop down in Yucatan, and they do the crocodiles, whale shark, caves, caverns, but they're big into tech diving and cave dives, 6-hour dives, 300 feet deep and all kind of craziness. But it is the clearest water you've ever seen. It's almost like you're just levitating in air. It's so clear in a lot of places.
Is it freshwater?
It's freshwater. It mixes. Some of them have a halocline where you'll go down and there's the switch where it gets, and some are saltwater. Most of them are freshwater, but a whole lot of them, hundreds of miles down the road, will connect to the saltwater. So it mostly depends on where you are, how far inland. And it presents a lot of opportunities, especially where the light beams come to. I like it where you can see light personally. And so when the lights come down through there, it's like laser beams coming through, and it's just incredible to see.
Yeah, adds a beautiful element to the photography for sure, because you got those big beams just coming down and
Definitely.
highlighting essentially the silhouettes of whatever you're shooting, which is pretty cool. Yeah, I'm also not a big fan of cave diving. I've done it a couple of times. I'm just not interested. It's just not fun. I gotta say, some people push their limits way beyond my capability. So I share that with you. What kind of equipment do you use? I can see there's a whole bunch of cool equipment behind you. Could you walk us through some of those technical aspects of the equipment that you have? And
I'm lucky to work with a couple companies. All of my scuba gear is Sherwood or Kona, and and all of my camera equipment is created by Aclite. The housing, the strobes, everything, and both of them are incredible. Their service departments are amazing, and I used both of them before I became sponsored and an ambassador for them. Which I wouldn't just rep a product just so somebody, just for money or for showing the product. I have to believe in the product, and they're both willing to work with Kimber and I, my wife. If we say, "Boy, I wish my BCD wasn't so bulky," or or my camera, I want to use this lens, I need a different dome or something, and they're great at working with us to try to make stuff work out for both of our sakes. And everything I've used Aclite for over 20 years, and it's a new housing that I'm taking to Cozumel to test out. I got a Canon R5, and I've used it once in the pool, and so far I'm really loving. I hadn't switched cameras since 2015. I think I used a Canon 5DSR for 5 years, and nothing really appealed to me that I wanted, and now this new R5 has a better buffer and better dynamic range, and it shoots quickly. You can shoot 20 frames per second if you need to. Usually you don't need to do that, but if something's biting on your camera or something, it's kind of cool to get some rapid fire.
I don't know if I'd be poised enough to push the button if someone was biting on my camera, to be fair. Yes, I think everybody has their personal opinion on camera houses and cameras. I mean, it's such a technical aspect to what you guys do, and everyone swears by Nikon, everyone swears by Canon or Luminix or whatever it is. It's like,
really, it's a tool, and so you can use anything. If people ask me, any camera will work. You just have to learn your camera, the strengths and weaknesses, and make it work for you.
Yeah, you're absolutely right.
Housings, all they are is something to keep your camera dry. That's really all they are. If it works, it works.
Yeah, I agree with you. Well, listen, Ken, I can't thank you enough for doing the interview. You've been a wonderful guest, and we appreciate your images, and I hope the viewers have liked the images that we've been pulling up. And thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks, I appreciate it. Thanks for having me.
Counting Coral relies on public support. If you would like to donate to Counting Coral and help out with the coral crisis, please see the link in the comments section if you are on YouTube, link in the bio if you're on Instagram, link in the post section if you're on Facebook or LinkedIn. The best way to follow us for Counting Coral Chats is to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Hit the subscribe button and then hit the bell. When you hit the bell, you will be notified every time we post new content. We are always looking for people to join us in one of our chats. If you are interested in what we do and you would like to be on our show, you can email us at connect@countingcoral.com.